What's up guys, it's Carter Kid, and today I'm going to be showing you how to go from this to this. Yes, 614 on cam! This video is essentially how I went from absolute beginner to sub 10 in a little over a year, and how you can too. So if you're like me, you've seen those kids on YouTube who solve the Rubik's Cube in under 5 seconds, and you want to be just like them. But unfortunately, you just have a crappy Rubik's brand that you can barely turn. So here's how you can get fast in a short amount of time. So if you're an absolute beginner, the first step is, of course, to get a cube. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to open cubicle.com, then you're going to look up the beginner's bundle, and then you're just going to order it. And this is a pretty cool trick that they don't want you to know. When you go to checkout, if you type in these 3 letters, KTK, you can actually save money. Isn't that insane? So yeah, now that we've ordered a cube, let's unbox it. Comes with a cube and a logo, a bag, and some lube. Right now, we're just going to focus on the cube. It also comes with an accessory box, but we don't really care about that. It just has a screwdriver and some cards. The most important part is the cube. In my opinion, the RS3M 2020 is the highest value cube you can get. The premium setup version is my main 3x3, and if you're a beginner starting off, you should go for this cube. It's a bit unstable since the magnets are weak, but you can change it with some lube and some extra magnets. Another thing I highly recommend you do is to take off this disgusting Moyu logo and put on this amazing logo. And just like that, the cube's a lot better. Let's also take out this lube, unscrew it, and just put in 2 drops of silk. Then if we break it in, your cube's gonna get a lot smoother. Just like that, a $9 cube out of the box, solved in 7 seconds. You don't need an expensive cube to be good. You wanna know how to do this? Stick around to find out. Now that you have a cube, you're of course going to need to know how to solve it. In my opinion, the best tutorial to learn from is Tingman's tutorial. He outlines the steps very well and shows how to memorize the algorithms. Contrary to popular belief, you don't just solve the Rubik's Cube intuitively. There's a set of algorithms and things to know when you solve it, and here's the basic outline of the beginner's method. You start out by solving a cross on the white side, and then you solve the white layer just like this, and then you finish up building the first 2 layers like this. Then you solve the top side, and then you just solve the rest of the cube. Now the next step is to just get comfortable with the beginner's method. Just do a bunch of solves and turn pretty quickly, and you can get down to around 40 or maybe even 30 seconds with the beginner's method. However, at some point the beginner's method is just not going to cut it, and you're going to want to switch to CFOP. CFOP starts out the same by making a cross, but instead of inserting each corner individually, you pair it up with its edge before inserting it, making your solves a lot more efficient. This process is called F2L, also known as first 2 layers, and as the name suggests, you are just solving the first 2 layers, but in a more efficient way than in the beginner's method. Now at first, your solves with F2L are going to be a lot slower, but in the long run, it's going to help you a lot. In my opinion, the best F2L tutorial is Brody the Cuber's. His F2L tutorial is literally as simple as following a flowchart, and there'll be a link for it on screen and in the description. So once you've learned F2L, you're going to want to learn for-look last layer. Now what you would do in the beginner's method is orient the edges and then do soon a couple of times to orient the top layer. But that's just not going to cut it. Instead, there are around 10 algorithms to learn for OLL, and a couple more to learn for PLL. So now that you've learned for-look last layer in F2L, practice. To practice, you can go to cstimer.net and time your solves using the scramble at the top. If you don't already, make sure to go learn notation. It's very helpful, and you're going to need to know it anyways. And you don't have to just time your solves. If you're just walking around or sitting down, you can just do untimed solves, and those help a lot too. So now that you've been practicing a lot, you've gotten around to 25 or 30 seconds, but you don't know where to improve from there. Honestly, to get sub 20, you just need to improve your cross and F2L. For cross, you're going to want to make it under 8 moves. So in order to get it under 8 moves, learn special inserts like this to put in 2 pieces at a time. Another thing is to learn more efficient algorithms for F2L cases. For example, for this case, you might solve it like this and then pair up these 2. But a much more efficient way is to take this edge out like this, and then you have a 3-move insert. Or from this angle, to move this corner over here, and then pair up these like this, and then insert. Another case that beginners do wrong a lot is this case. Some people split up the corner and then pair it up. But a much more efficient algorithm is to do F, inverse sexy move, and then F prime, and then you have it paired up. And then for last layer, you can keep doing 2-look OLL, But when you're at this level, I suggest you learn full PLL because it will help a lot. Another thing to learn is how to pair up pieces and insert into the back. So for example, for this case, what a lot of people would do is rotate like this and then pair them up like that. But let's say you're from this angle. A Y2 is obviously not the best decision to make. What you'd instead do is, like you would from this angle, you would hide the edge, move over the corner, and put it back up. And then again, instead of rotating to insert it like this, you can just insert it into the back like this, mirroring the L moves with R moves. And it's the same thing for something like this pair. Hide the edge, pair it up, and then insert. And this will be very helpful for your solve going forward. If you solve 2 pairs in the back, it'll make your solve a lot smoother. Reducing rotations in your solves is so important in the long run. So here are some cases that you can use to avoid rotations. So starting off is this case. What some people do is they pair it up and then insert it like that. The better way to solve it is to rotate from this angle and then do S, R prime, S prime. In this case, it actually would be better to rotate since you're solving a pair into the back and you can see more in the front to solve the rest of your F2L. Another example is this case where people would rotate to solve it like this. But as I showed earlier in the video, you can just solve it like this. Now once you're sub 20, improving will be a lot easier, except for, well, when you get sub 10. Now once you're sub 20, you should know basic and advanced F2L cases, as well as full PLL. And once you get down to around 17, 16, or 15 seconds, you should learn full OLL. Full OLL is a lot easier than it seems. Full PLL only has 21 algorithms, whereas full OLL has 57. But don't be discouraged by the amount of algorithms. It's actually easier to learn than you think. And from sub 20 to sub 15, you're going to start learning about lookahead. Lookahead is essentially when you're solving one thing, you're looking ahead to the next thing. For example, this next pair. So here's an example of look ahead in the solve. So I start out by solving my cross like this, and then I look ahead into this pair, and then I see this corner, so I can cancel into solving this pair, and then I see this will get broken up like that, and I can deduce that this corner is in the back because I see that this edge is green and this corner is green, and there are no white corners in the top layer, so I know it's like this, and I can rotate and solve it into the back. And again, learning full OLL is very useful, so we just have OLL and then PLL. Now something you might want to try to get sub 15 or just in general is to make your turning a bit more chill. For example, look at these 2 solves and try and tell me the difference. Make your guess right now in the comments below before I tell you. You ready? Okay. So the answer is the solve on the right is much more chill. For example, if I'm turning at 9 turns per second but not looking ahead, the solve isn't going to be that great. But if I'm turning a tad bit slower and looking ahead more, the solve is going to be really good. Here's an example. Here's a solve where I'm turning really fast. And here's a solve where I'm turning a tad bit slower, but looking ahead more. As you can see in the second solve, I slowed down my turning a bit. I looked ahead a lot more because I wasn't turning as fast and the pieces were easier to see. Those solves actually had pretty similar turns per second. Turns per second is how many turns you do in the solve divided by how many seconds it takes to do the solve. And so let's say you want to be sub 15. The average CFOP solve is around 60 moves. So all you need to do is turn at around 4 turns per second. And if you were to consistently turn at 4 turns per second like this, you would definitely become sub 15 in a short amount of time. And this is a very good way to practice slow turning or just turning as a whole. When you're turning really quickly, pieces are harder to see and you can lock up a bunch more, and that's why look ahead isn't as good in this situation. However, when you slow down your turning a bit more, look ahead is much easier. However, when you're at last layer, you shouldn't slow down your turning because there's no look ahead required at last layer. You should still spam your TPS. And that leads me to my next point. When you're going from sub 15 to sub 10, you're going to want to make your PLL algorithms as optimal as you can. Now, different algs work for different people, but here's a case that people usually get wrong a lot. This is one of the N-perms, and something that people usually do is they do the lefty version of the other alg. But here's a better algorithm that's more time and move efficient. With the right finger tricks, you can execute this algorithm really fast, and it's definitely better than the algorithm that a lot of other people use. Another way to practice your look ahead is to practice events like Megaminx and Big Cubes. The way these events are structured, it makes them require a lot of look ahead, so practicing those events will enhance your look ahead on 3x3. I should also mention, if you're not yet using a Stackmat timer, you should definitely get one, because those are the ones they use in competition, and your times at first will be a lot slower because your pickup is bad, but to practice pickup, just practice 2x2 4 movers like this. So to improve your pickup, just practice 4 movers on 2x2. So scramble it with these 4 moves, U, R, U prime, R prime. And then you just have the world record scramble. And try to get consistently sub 0.49, which is the world record. And 0.42, just like that. That'll improve your pickup. Just practicing the scramble over and over again. Okay, so you've been practicing a lot, improving your algorithms, and you've gotten down to around 12 seconds. And here is the road to sub 10. You need to make sure that every part of your solve is as good as it can be. You want to execute your cross in 1 to 2 seconds, your F2L in around 4 to 5, and your last layer in around 3 to 4. Make sure your last layer finger tricks are really good. For example, for the T-perm, I used to re-grip like this, and then do it, but you can just do it in home grip really easily like that. Same thing for stuff like soon, I used to re-grip and then solve it, but instead you can just do it in home grip and solve it like that. It might be useful to learn some very advanced F2L cases like this, where instead of rotating like this and solving it into the back, you solve it with wide arm moves like this. Another example is this case where you would rotate and solve it like that, but instead you can just solve it with wide arm moves again like that. When you're getting sub 10, it might be also useful to learn some ZBLL. ZBLL is when you're solving the last layer, but instead of doing the normal alg, you do a different alg to make sure it skips PLL. ZBLL is only when there's a cross on top. When not all the edges are oriented and you do an algorithm to skip PLL, that's called one look last layer. Something you might also want to try is planning your first pair in inspection or tracking it while you're making your cross. I can usually plan my first pair on easy scrambles like this, so here's how I would do it. I'd start out by inserting these 2 pieces in relation, and then once you insert this piece, this pair gets kicked out, and that's what I'm going to do for my first pair, like this. And once you plan your first pair, you already know what you're going to do for the first moves of your first pair. So then you can be looking to do other pieces like this, and then this. And it just makes your solve a lot smoother when you plan your first pair. However, on scrambles where it's a bit harder to plan first pair, you can just track certain pieces. For example, while I'm building my cross, I see that this edge is out here and this corner is in the back here. So I keep mind of that, and then I can go and just solve it into the back like that. And then again, you can just go on with the rest of your solve, and since you kind of saw your first pair, it'll be a lot smoother. So yeah, I think that pretty much covers all of it. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have any further questions, make sure to ask them in the comments below. I read every single comment, so don't hesitate to ask. I also recently started a podcast with my friends, so make sure to check that out. There'll be a link in the description. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to like and subscribe. We're getting so close to 1,000 subscribers. I worked on this video for a super long time. I've been working on it for over 2 weeks. Oh my gosh, 2 weeks I spent on this. Make sure to like and subscribe. Thank you guys so much for watching. Huge shout out to Jack, Deacon, and HydraCuber for using the code KTK. Whenever you use the code KTK, you not only save money, but it supports me and the channel. I would really appreciate it if you use code KTK at thecubicle.com. Thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe. Check out the new podcast that my friends are starting. And yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. See you guys next time.